It's time to add the African Crested Porcupines to the Desert Adventure Park. Today we'll build a slightly themed habitat for those spiky guys in the desert village of our zoo. This actually might be one of my favorite habitats in the entire zoo, and I really hope you guys will enjoy it. Hello guys, this is Cesar Creates and welcome back to my channel. And welcome back to the Desert Adventure Park. And I am very excited for this episode today because we'll be adding one of my favorite animals in this game, the African Crested Porcupine. I have been waiting for this episode for so long because I really wanted to build another porcupine habitat. We've built one in the Elm Hill City Zoo, actually during the early access for the Animal Pack. This animal was of course the part of this pack, and back then when Planet Zoo announced that they will be adding the porcupine with this pack, I was just so amazingly happy and excited because this was basically one of my most requested animals for this game, and I was so happy to finally get it. And I really wanted to build another habitat for those guys, to have the opportunity to build something else for them, and this is finally time to do so. Porcupines are really common in real-life zoos. There's many species of different porcupines on our planet, but there are three that are very similar to each other: the Indian porcupine, the African crested porcupine, and the Cape porcupine. So there's a high chance that you have one of those in your local zoo. Of course, today we'll be adding the African crested porcupine, but for example, the Cape porcupine is really similar. They're slightly bigger. They both live in Africa, and it is very easy to mistake them. So I really wanted to see one of them being implemented into Planet Zoo. I knew that it would probably be a bit challenging for Frontier with all those quills and this shagginess of the porcupine just to recreate it in the game, but I think that they did a stellar job with it. The model looks absolutely incredible, the animations, all this stuff. I just love this animal in the game, and yeah, this habitat today just proves that I love to build for them. So let's move over to talking about the habitat itself. As you guys probably know, if you are following this series, we are currently building a desert village in the Desert Adventure Park. This village will house the animals that basically live in the desert biome. We already have the fennec foxes, we have the sand cats, and now it was time to build for the porcupines. And just for those of you who like to hear about my plans for my zoos, we'll have two more exhibits like this, like smaller exhibits in this village, before we'll start to build a safari ride on the desert dunes that I promised you guys. So those are the newest plans for this series. Because I love porcupines so much, I knew that I have to have them here. But the only thing with porcupines is that their habitats in zoos are usually very boring. This is just some rocks, logs, and that's basically it. I don't remember if I have ever seen an interesting habitat for them in any of the zoos that I visited. Last time when I was in Prague, the habitat was kind of okay for the Indian porcupines, and again a bit boring for the African crested porcupines or Cape porcupines. I don't really know which one they have. And of course, in the Desert Adventure Park, I am trying to challenge myself to do and create some theming. Of course, we did the entire African village and it was very themed around African hats, thatch roofs, like very cliche African theming. If you think about the African area in the zoo, you'll probably think of just round hats with thatch roofs, and this is what I went for. So in here, I also had to come up with something. I tried to do it in the last episode when we've built the gate for the whole village, but to be honest, when I started to build this is actually my second attempt of building this habitat, and I tried to use the same style of the desert, like Morocco architecture, something like this. Like this is like typical for the north of Africa, I think. So a lot of white plaster pieces, like it looks very ornamental, very nice. I don't know, something didn't feel right when I tried to incorporate the animal exhibit with this style. So after several attempts of trying to build some buildings around the habitats, I decided that this is not something that I want to go for, and I will try to look for something a bit more like a proper desert village, not a ground thing like a desert palace or anything like that. So I started googling and I actually found a really cool set of models of desert like village houses here on YouTube. Actually, it is called a desert architecture old house by an architecture YouTuber called Isa 3D Archi or something like that. I will put the link to this video down in the description so you guys can check it out. And I took so much inspiration from that. I just thought, okay, this is something that I really want to build, and this is basically something that you can see on your screen. So we are right now building a first building in this little desert village that will actually be the shelter for the porcupines, so they will be able to go in there. And I'll also build the entire interior for this with a little backstage area for the porcupines. This won't be in the speed build. I will show you the finished interior in the cinematic shots by the end of the video. This means that I will probably be changing the gate to the village. I know that I've just built it in the last episode, but you know, sometimes when I don't feel something is working, I prefer to change it, and I believe that this new style of those buildings works so much more better with the zoo, with the animal enclosures, with everything being a bit weathered and not so like perfectly clean and perfectly nice, a bit like destroyed in several places. This is why I'm using so many decals in here, and I think that the decals really made this look really interesting and nice. Especially those like rocks that are like exposed on the walls. Those are just amazing for this build. And also the matte walls of Planet Zoo are so amazing. At first I tried to use the regular plaster walls for this, but the matte walls have actually this top part that is slightly irregular and looks so good on the top of these buildings. And also it has this texture, and the texture like combined with all the decals and all the weathering and stuff looks so good that I am so amazed with how good those buildings are actually. As I told you, the porcupine habitats are not too interesting, so I really had to come up with something, use my brain for this and try to be creative. And because we didn't have those buildings in the desert village, I knew that I had to add some in this video to finally have some buildings in there, because we only had this like huge cage for the fennec foxes and the sandcats. I knew that I had to incorporate the buildings somewhere in this habitat, so I decided to like place the habitat in front and then add all the buildings behind, so they will sort of like act like a background of the entire habitat. And then I decided to slightly incorporate the habitat into this whole village, so it sort of looks like the garden of this village. I don't know, something like this. I am not the greatest when it comes to building themed things in Planet Zoo. I like my generic build, like normal city zoos and stuff, as you guys probably know from my Elm Hill City Zoo series. When it comes to those themed areas, I always struggle a bit, but in here I really had to go through the struggle and try to build this. I think that actually Planet Coaster 2 and building my like Mediterranean very themed park really helped with this. As you guys probably know, in Planet Zoo I always try to build the interiors for all my buildings in this game, so that every building you can actually go into, there is something, it has a purpose and so on. In Planet Coaster I'm not doing this, I'm only doing the interior for several like more important buildings, and I did that in here as well. So only the building with the porcupines, with their shelter will actually have an interior. but there's also like 3 more buildings and there's nothing inside. Those will be, I think, used for example for storage, or those will be just for the decoration and for the purposes of having this village. Probably the zoo would use them for something, but yeah, probably the storage of food or maybe some stuff like areas. But I decided, you know, not to build this whole thing for too long, to like leave them empty. Maybe we'll use them for something, I don't know, maybe we'll just copy them over to some other places. But yeah, this time I decided not to do the interiors, and I actually feel quite good about this. And after I'll be done with those buildings and this habitat today, I think that the desert village is becoming to be my favorite part of the entire zoo. I'll of course, I hope that the next habitats will look as good as the ones that we have right now, but I really love what we are creating in here, so I hope you guys will enjoy it as well. After I was done with the buildings, I actually only showed you guys building one of them because I did the same things when it comes to the other buildings. Those are the same materials, the same decals and stuff. It was time to do some terraforming in the habitat. Then I added the path using the Q trick because I wanted slightly like a narrower path, so I'm using a 3-meter path for this. If you don't know how to do it, there's plenty of tutorials here on YouTube on how you can do narrower paths without any mods, just using the Q path trick. And then it was time to build the fences for this habitat. So in here I decided to use the rock walls from the Oceania pack. I really love them, especially in here. This backdrop of the entire habitat looks so good. It was slightly inspired by the Prague Zoo and their Cape or African, I don't know, porcupine habitat. In there I incorporated like a gate for the keepers made from the wood, so it sort of looks like the villagers from this village can go into this little area that will be like a garden or something, and in this garden we have a small group of the porcupines living in there. In the front of the habitat I of course added some glass panels so the guests will have this perfect view for the porcupines. Porcupines are not very like qualified climbers, so they don't need high fences. But overall, I think that this fence here, although it was very quick to build and it was very easy to do, is one of my favorite parts of this entire habitat. This back wall there looks so good, especially after I decided to change the levels of each and every piece of this wall, so it's a bit more irregular. It looks so good, and also the colors just match so well with the colors of the village in the back, so I am very happy with this. I actually added the entrance for the porcupines so they will be able to enter their shelter. I had to fill in this gap like above the actual like guillotine doors for them. We don't have too many pieces of those like rock walls from the Oceania pack. There are only 2, so the smaller one was too big. So I actually decided to fill it in with the decal piece, and from the distance you just cannot see that there's actually one piece missing and this is just a decal. The doors to the shelter will actually be closed, and this is something that I think zoos also do. Because animals like that, they like to hide in the caves, in the burrows and stuff, so I assume that if the door will be open for them, they'll be spending a lot of time in the shelter and the guests won't be actually be able to see them. So that's why when sometimes when animals are let out of their shelters, the doors are closed behind them. They have still plenty of spaces to hide in the habitat. They have places where they can hide from the scorching sun, but they simply cannot enter the shelter. The doors are open for them like during a specific time of the day, probably in the evening or something, so then they can go back in there and sleep in the shelter. I'm not a zookeeper, but I assume that it works like this. I also added some stalagmite rock walls to this whole rock wall that we have in the back to make it look a bit more interesting and to break it down a bit. Then I added some plants around the habitat. Of course, we cannot have too many plants inside of the enclosure because the porcupines will simply eat them, like dig through them, destroy them. Although I still added some plants because I just didn't want to have like this very bare, like empty habitat for them like they normally have in the zoos. But definitely the plants that I would choose for this habitat will be a bit more dry, a bit more like, you know, destroyed and not so perfect. But around the habitat, I still, even though we are building a desert village and the whole foliage must be more like dry and, you know, must resemble the desert, I still added some greenery because I've always liked this contrast between the outside of the habitat and the inside. When it comes to the habitat, I will add a lot of rock formations in here, and I'll be using the temple pieces for that. There's this one really nice temple piece that is recolorable. The temple pieces, by the way, are from the South America pack, which, by the way, is now available to the console players because it was released this week with the Australia pack. So two really cool packs with a lot of cool building pieces, actually. Yeah, this temple piece is from that pack, and you can create really cool rock formations with it. And I really wanted to play a bit with this piece and build the entire rock formations for this habitat using this one, and also I will be using like one or two different ones as well. I had an idea to build like this tiny canyon in the middle of the habitat to make it look a bit more interesting, like to guide your eye inside of this habitat and to those buildings like backed in there. And also I'll add some of those rock formations on the borders of the habitat, and I'll also build like a little cave from those temple pieces and add the burrow inside there, so it sort of looks like the porcupines will be entering a cave, but in fact they'll be entering the burrow because of course they love burrows, they are burrowing animals, and they love to sleep in them. In this habitat, actually, it says that the burrow is available to the animals when I click on it, but unfortunately I haven't seen them really use that, so maybe I'll have to slightly adjust some things because I don't know if they will be able to actually go inside there. But after adding all the rocks, it was time to add a lot of plants. As I told you already, those will be mainly like dry plants, a lot of sticks, and a lot of things that look a bit dead, but that was my intention. We have already talked about the newest DLCs for the console version of Planet Zoo that were released this week, but actually at the day that I am recording this voiceover, Frontier sort of surprised us with a new update for a PC version of Planet Zoo, and it was actually a very welcome thing because it adds something that us, the community, were very vocal about, and we were sort of requesting those things. To me, two most exciting things are, of course, about the animals. So from now on, the African leopard will do this hanging animation on the log, just as the Amur leopard does. It is such an amazing animation. When I'll be building for the African leopard, I will make sure to record some cinematic shots with this new pose. And also the Arctic fox from now on can finally use the burrow. It was the only fox species in the game that couldn't use it. It was a bit weird, but finally they will be able to go into the burrows. They also updated the gift shops because I know that for some of you they are still not working. I never had issues with them. I recorded my like showcase of the new update in several zoos, and it was always worked for me. Then I've built actually the very detailed gift shop in here using actually the modular gift shop, and the staff was just, you know, doing their thing in there. Of course I didn't have guests, so maybe it all goes wrong after actually opening the gift shop, but the staff was not getting stuck in there. I know that some people were very vocal and very upset about the whole gift shop situation, and I get that if you prefer franchise, that can be very like annoying, but for me as a sandbox player and someone who prefers the creative aspect of this game over the management aspect, which is kind of a weird thing to say for a person who has a degree in the business management, but yeah, I really prefer Planet Zoo for the creative aspect, but what I wanted to say is that I sort of like didn't see the whole thing, why it was such a big issue that the one thing in the game is slightly not perfect, but from now on I hope that it will be working for everyone. And for other thing for me that is really cool that they did is actually update some things about the animals, and it is so amazing to see them doing that after 5 years, over 5 years of supporting this game, and they still like care to change, for example, things like, unfortunately, our African penguins, they are now critically endangered. They were the endangered species, but unfortunately their numbers are lower and lower, and now they are critically endangered species, which is so sad, and they actually updated that in the game. And they also changed the ranges of some of the animals in the Zoopedia. So yeah, really amazing thing to see that they still are doing the touch-ups in there, that they are still trying to stay updated after such a long time. Like, we know that there is at least one more DLC coming for Planet Zoo, because the developers basically confirmed that. So we know that they are still working on additional content, but they still have time to go back to it and to fix some things and to update some things, which is so cool to see after all this time. And I'm sure that they have a lot of work with all the issues when it comes to Planet Coaster 2. They released this whole roadmap of the things that they will add to the game, that they will improve. So yeah, I'm sure that they have a lot of work with that. But still, I really enjoy Planet Coaster 2. This is not something to say that, this game is bad or something. It has its issues, but I still love to build in that game. Okay, and with that being said, this is all when it comes to the speed build of this video. I'll meet you guys in the second in the cinematic shots to show you the entire habitat that I just love. There's just something about the colors of this entire habitat that is just so pleasing to me. All those colors just work so well together, and I really love the contrast of the dry plants with the buildings in the back, with this rock wall. I think it all works so well, and the porcupines look really good in it. I think that they really suit to this enclosure, and I hope that they will thrive in here. I know that this is probably quite big compared to the real life porcupine habitats. They are often very tiny, very small, and we did something like that in the Elm Hill City Zoo, and today I just wanted to go for something that I designed in my head and to build in here, so it doesn't have to be like 100% realistic. I am sure that the porcupines will appreciate a bigger habitat. I am very happy that I decided to change my concept for the type of the architecture for the buildings that I will use in this desert village. This means, of course, again, that I will have to change the gate for this village, but I will do it in one of the episodes, like upcoming episodes, and will of course build more like buildings in this style. So this is something that you can expect from the upcoming videos. I also created my own custom info sign for this habitat, like for all the habitats in this village so far. I really love them, and actually I need to upload them to my Discord server so you guys can download them and use it for your zoos. Here we have a quick look at the backstage area of this habitat. Here is the behind of the building, and here is the inside. This is where the keepers will prepare the food for them, where the porcupines will be sleeping. So yeah, this is their private area of this habitat. Okay guys, this is all that I have for you in today's episode. I really hope you enjoyed it and you are happy that the Desert Adventure Park is back on my channel. I have so many new episodes planned for the series and I cannot wait to upload them. The next video on my channel will actually be a little Planet Zoo tutorial, so I really hope you guys will like it and it will be useful for you, so stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed the video and would like to see more from me, please consider to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Ring the bell if you want to be notified every time I upload a new video like this. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and leave me a comment. Tell me what you think about this habitat, if you like it or not. Maybe there's something I can improve. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a wonderful day and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys!